Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And ahead of New York's Major 4 beginning in just a couple of days' time, Simp from Atlanta FaZe has had some harsh word to say for a couple of specific players in the league, talking about the worst SMG player as he sees it, but also why Clayster should have been the one to stay on New York subliners instead of Crimsix, and why he's pretty bad at this particular game. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to dive into today. Obviously, we had the kind of challenges drama going on this past weekend. Thought there's some good content right here from the Toronto Academy Europe. I'm pretty sure they end up coming top 3 in this tournament. Here we go. We've got Beans absolutely fried on the main stage right here. So yeah, good to see. I think there's a lot of talent still down there that can get picked up next season when the teams decide to do exactly that. Let's talk Toronto right here real quick. What we saw from Maven and Merc actually last night was the first episode of their Merc and Maven podcast. I kind of missed this one live, so hopefully it goes up on YouTube or something and we get to watch it after the fact. But thought that was pretty cool. Hopefully if you guys did watch it, it was a good show, and I'm sure they're going to do a fair few episodes. We'll see, of course, if it lasts long term. Crimsix has been going rogue, though, lately, right? And we love to see this. Whenever Crim's going rogue, whenever he's kind of tweeting a fair bit, getting a bit confident, probably shows that he's feeling pretty good going into the major. I did think this was rather interesting, though, because I looked at this yesterday, the kind of roster concept. People are wondering, okay, maybe minus Octane plus Crimsix could be an idea here, right? Even though that'd be a complete overhaul of what Thieves are doing. But I was actually thinking about that, just because Crimsix comes out and he's going to talk about Scrubby right here. You're terrifying to look at. Like, he's locked in, not there to make friends. You know, you're a bad guy. You know that, and Scrubby tweets this one out, right? So it definitely seems like Crim is, I don't know if this is actually his intention here, but I do wonder if Crim is thinking going into next season, okay, what's my team going to be? Am I still going to be with Kismet, Porlex, and Hydra? Like, if they make the World Championship and do well, then, you know, more than likely they might well stick together. If they don't, the team's probably going to blow apart. Hydra could go elsewhere if he wants to. There's all that discussion going on at the present time. So Crim might be looking at some potential players out there, the likes of Scrappy, like others as well, as thinking, okay, could he be a teammate for next season? Could he be a guy that I kind of build a relationship with to make sure that Crim can still actually get some superstar younger guys on his team? Because there was a big talking point relatively recently that, Crim might have effectively be scaring away all the younger talented players due to chemistry and internal team issues and stuff, to which point he can no longer team with a Shotzi or an Illy or maybe a Hydra next season, who knows? But Scrappy could be a guy that he's looking at, right? It kind of reminded me of this actually when Crimsix was giving a lot of gas to Cammy. Now, of course, Crim and Cammy haven't teamed up yet, but there were some rumors that Crim might have wanted to bring Cammy into the Dallas Empire structure if he was still there last year, or potentially into the New York team, which eventually was being formed. But in terms of roles, of course, it wouldn't work out. But yeah, Crim was giving a lot of gas to Cammy last year, and maybe the same now to Scrappy. So you've got to wonder what the teams, when the off-season hits and when team changes are going to happen, who exactly is Crim going to end up teaming up with? Because I'm sure he's got his eyes on a few players, if of course this New York team doesn't go to plan and things certainly need changing as a result of it. But of course, New York still could qualify for champs and do a great run, but it is going to be far from easy. So they either need to just win the event, and I'm pretty sure winning the event will be enough. I mean, like, it's not even necessarily enough, because if, like, I don't know, if Los Angeles Guerrillas get second and Mutineers get third or something like that, or Rokkr get third, then even winning it for the subliners won't be enough to kind of overhaul the gap to some of those teams. But realistically, winning it will be good enough, because the results, if they win it, will fall in their favor. But, top 3 will only be enough if all their other competitors get top 12. Top 2 might be enough in certain situations, so it's a bit of a mess, to be honest, but they've got to try and rely on all their opponents doing badly, and then, of course, doing as well as, well, is it possible at this event? So it's going to be far from easy, right? And if they don't qualify, then, surely, despite this team right now arguably being one of the best in the entire game, we'll have to split up during the off-season. But Crim has certainly been going rogue with tweets like this as well right here. But Simp actually let his thoughts be known last night. They did a great piece of content over at the Atlanta FaZe channel. You don't see that much content out of FaZe, but when they do it, I think it's generally well done. And Simp actually showed more personality in this video than I think he showed in a very long period of time. So I think that was good to see as well. That they made a video, effectively the idea was either eat whatever they've got on the table here or answer a question. And there was a couple of questions that Arcitys answered Simp that he gave pretty interesting answers to. One of which being, who's the worst SMG in the league? I'll share his answer for that in a second. And also wondering, who should New York subliners have kept on their team when they were making the decision earlier this year? Clayster or Crimsix? Who's going to stay? Who's going to be the main AR? Who should they have kept? They had to make the same decision back in Dallas Empire and Modern Warfare going into Black Ops Cold War. They made the same decision as New York did this time around, but Simp doesn't necessarily agree.
No way, no.
Yo, I got a perfect answer because they started talking to us. Who is the worst SMG player in the league and why?
In the league? I don't even know every SMG player in the league, bro.
They're That's what he said.
I mean, listen, man. I'm not trying to eat anything, so I gotta be real here. Worst sub in the league at the moment, it's gotta be Jimbo. Let's be real here, bro. At first it was John, they dropped John, they got John Carlos Johnny.
John goes, Johnny replacing John. Jim on the side.
It's gotta be
You got some Johnny somewhere, man.
Gotta be Jim right now, man.
Jays, man. Who should have been kept on New York, Crim or Clay?
Oh, I mean, listen, you know, I'm a Clay kind of guy, man. You know, I'm one of the few out there who I think Clay is one of the goatiest. You know, and respectfully, Crim is dog at this game. Clay was moving fast, and he was moving fast with Neppy, and now they're not. So. I think Clay should have stayed.
So admittedly, Crim has added moments so far this season, right? This is a pretty good one, of course, up against Los Angeles Thieves, even though they did go on to lose the series. But yeah, individually, Crim hasn't quite been the player that he was maybe in previous seasons. I don't think this is one of his best titles by any means, but he's still having a fair amount of impact and still, of course, causing big things for the rest of his team. But on an individual level, he's not quite there, even though he's kind of frying all the kids in this particular situation. In this clip that New York put out just a couple of days ago, almost a complete and very nice streak at that point. And you might well expect Simp to favour Clayster in these kind of discussions, just because, of course, Clay was on the United squad back in the, of course, the Black Ops 4 days. He was one of the players that first took a chance on Simp in the team, and, of course, won the World Championship alongside Simp, aBeZy, Arcitys, and Prestinni as he was back in the day as well. So, of course, that team, you'd expect them to be kind of more Clay fans than they are Crimsix fans. It always seems like, as well, whenever Simp and aBeZy or whatever played Crimsix, there always seems to be some, beef in that series for some reason. When Crimsix dies, and let's say, Simp closes a 1v1 on Crimsix, he's for sure shooting that body, right, every single time. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it might have been the first event, or one of the events that FaZe won last year, where the final kill was going down on Crimsix, and they were trying to assassinate him for the final kill. They were just trying to take the make of victory. So, look, it makes sense why they might favour Clayster over Crimsix in the discussion, but I did think it was interesting, actually, to look at some of the stats here, just to see how things actually line up. This, in terms of the worst SMG discussion, this is over at breakingpoint.gg. Pretty tough to look at some of these numbers right here, but some of the worst numbers actually do go to the likes of Clayster at a 0.84. Crimsix, I believe, is at a 0.93 this season in terms of overall KD. Doesn't, of course, tell the whole story. You've got to look at, kills for 10 minutes, first blood percentages, that type of stuff. And Clay, of course, didn't play that many maps, only 8 control maps this season. Wasn't really in, of course, too long at the start of the year. But Jimbo, despite playing a fair few maps, even though for some reason this isn't fully loading, you guys can see what it says. It's a 0.82. It's not particularly good, at least in terms of players that have been in the league for some time. Jimbo does have the worst KD, but he's not far behind Johnny. Royalty, of course, who stepped into New York briefly, and 2 as well as a 0.74 right now overall KD. So that's not looking particularly good. I guess these players are in the conversation. I think even as was mentioned by Simp, John was that player for some time, I suppose, and then of course he's gone. Johnny's in, even though Johnny currently has a worse KD, even though I think his Search and Destroy has certainly been better than John's for a fair little bit of time. Jimbo honestly isn't as bad, I think, as his stats imply. I actually think he has some potential in him, but it's just Paris, again, it's an example of being on Paris and it just chalking your career, because Jimbo's going to have a hard time getting back in the league after this season, and it's not necessarily because he doesn't deserve it, but I feel like right now he's stuck in Canada, no? He's effectively an entry SMG for Paris, a team that is very discoordinated at the best of times. Playing from Canada on whatever ping he's on is not going to be particularly good. So he's effectively being left out to dry a lot of the time, not just by the team, but by the organisation in general. So do you feel kind of bad for him? And then, of course, Simp's bashing on him as well, but, maybe for a reason that he may not have the raw talent as some of the other SMGs do in the league. And then the Crim versus Clay discussion, I must admit, is still pretty interesting, right? Because if they had have kept Clayster over Crimsix, how quickly would this team have turned it around? Would they have been at the same level they are now? Would they have been able to win hardpoint at this level? It's interesting to say, because I feel like Clay could have been also a good fit as the main AO on the team that they currently have with Paul, Kismet, and Hydra. Of course, also Clayster and Hydra had decent success last year, but I don't really know. It's an interesting one between Crim and Clay, because they have an interesting dynamic between them where they both can provide that kind of toxic energy to a team. But I feel like last year with just Clay as he was on New York subliners, things very quickly kind of melted down. I kind of wonder if Crim is kind of less prone to the team meltdowns than Clayster is. Maybe you guys disagree on that one, but I feel like they're a more consistent team now with Crim than they would be with Clayster. Maybe you guys disagree on that one, but I kind of think that keeping Crim was the right thing to do in this situation. And of course, look, Crim and Clay have had their fair bit of drama last season, and Crim always seems to be eyeing up, or already seems to be eyeing up potential players he might team with next year. We looked at Scrappy, we looked at Cammy, at what the options are there for Crim, and I'm sure that Clay's thinking a similar thing, right? He's been down there to challenges, he's wondering what options he has. Also, I do wonder whether the Minnesota Rokkr, right? Because we even talked earlier this season when they're making the move and Maniac was gone and Attach was kind of the main AR, whether Attach as the flex and Clayster as the main again might be an option for next season. So I feel like Minnesota Rokkr Clayster might not be a bad idea. I think maybe they're one of the teams that were giving Clayster offers earlier this season that they couldn't come to an arrangement with New Yorkers. I'd imagine that Attach maybe wants Clayster back in his team now. But Crimsix has an awful lot of confidence, of course, going into the major. He even says right here, he replies to this tweet and people are saying, okay, respond if New York are making jams Champs responding if we're going to smoke everyone in this major to make it to Champs responding as well. So Crim certainly has the confidence right now. Definitely wanted to look at this as well from Deserter though, because this was, I'm kind of confused exactly how they've done this, or whether they've just done it pretty much based on the individual performances for this kind of, well, for the Major 4 qualifiers, because I feel like this is completely faded. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you look at this from the pure perspective of what was their record in the Major 4 qualifiers, New York were, what, 4-1, London were 4-1, FaZe were 3-2, Thieves were 3-2, like, it basically aligns perfectly with them actually how well they did in terms of their numbers of effectively match wins this stage. But surely this doesn't accurately represent who the kind of teams to beat are, because having New York as the best team in the game right now, I feel like it is rather ambitious. Like, I'd still give it to FaZe, despite them being 3-2 and kind of losing to a couple of teams. FaZe is still the team to beat, there's no doubt about it. FaZe are the team that people are most scared of. Like, New York are probably in the top 3, top 4 ballpark. I think honestly might be top 3 right now. Ravens getting up this high seems a little bit ambitious maybe, but I still think maybe in the top 4 range is not bad, because these other teams, certainly Toronto, have fallen off their level. Guerrillas are not very good, even though 4 points up feels a bit ambitious as well for them. Minnesota Rokkr pretty bad. Seattle Surge, like, I still feel like Seattle deserve to be higher than this, to be honest. I still think I'd have them, I'd try and put them in the 6 range. Optic honestly are there, you know, maybe 6th or 7th. I feel like 11th is a bit harsh on them. Rokkr is still, I think, a worse team than Optic right now, and somehow Florida have finessed their way up to 6th despite having an absolutely terrible team. So I don't really know what's going on here. I feel like these numbers might reflect where the teams were in terms of their Major 4 qualifier performances, but I kind of doubt these are going to reflect at all like the actual major results here. But at the same time, a lot of these teams up here do start in the winners brackets, so they do theoretically have a better chance to make a run. But I still feel like at least a couple of these teams, Seattle, Optic, like whoever wins maybe that top 8 match, like one of these guys is going to make a run this tournament, I feel like, once they catch some fire in that losers bracket. But I mean, yeah, I don't really know. This has got to be the most faded list I've seen yet, I'm pretty sure. Now this is actually statistically accurate, so it can't be faded, but this just goes to show how either crazy Vanguard is, or just how competitive this season is. And to me, I think it is a bit of both, to be honest. But look at these numbers right here. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. So excluding Paris Legion, right, let's not talk about them, and FaZe and Optic. FaZe and Optic both have like a 60, I think it's about 60%. I think Optic's map win percentage might be like 64%, and FaZe is like 60%. But outside of those teams and Paris, the other teams have incredibly like similar series win-loss records and map win-loss records. Like it's kind of incredible to look at, right? If we look at series win-loss, like there are some differences here, right? But Seattle are 15-14, 15-14, 15-16, 14-16, 14-16, like crazy really. And then the map win count percentage is, to me, honestly insane. Like how similar they are in points as well. But look at this, 50% of their maps they win, 50% of their maps they win. The lowest tier is LAG, like Florida Mutineers at 46%, and even New York are at 47% of their maps that they win. But it's crazy to look at the fact that all of the teams in the midfield, there's 3 teams with precisely a 50%, or pretty much precisely, even at Los Angeles Thieves exactly precisely, map win count. There's one team with 49, there's one team with 51, like a team that won a major is at 52, and same with a team that loses a major at 46. So just insane how stacked it is in the midfield this season, and how hard everything is to call going into the major. It's probably a bit of this is competition, probably a bit of it is Call of Duty Vanguard, to be perfectly honest. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tell us on YouTube, God, this is a good video, and us like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.